So we go straight in.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go straight in. Hi, Rene. Welcome to the Functional Tennis Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Very well, actually. The sun is shining here in the Netherlands, so quite good for a day today.
Great. Well, it's picking up here in Dublin as well, and great to have you on. I know we previously did Zoom with you about 2 years ago. We did an Asics like masterclass Zoom, which was our best ever Zoom session. This is going to be audio only this week, so it's a bit different. But that was really successful, so I think this is going to be great. I've also met you we met in December in Marbella at the beautiful
Yeah,
venue in
yeah.
Punto Romano, which was amazing. That was a great few days run by Asics. And yeah, so interest here about you. First of all, I looked at your LinkedIn and it told me you've worked with Asics for 22 years.
That's correct. That's correct. I started already in 2001. Basically, they asked for somebody who had a lot of let's say affinity with sports, and that's also my background. Physical education is my background, and yeah, from that time on, we started. I started in actually what we call core performance sports, which means all other sports than for instance running. So I started with the company with that, already working on product at that time, and now 22 years later, I'm still working on products. I have been working on running shoes as well in the meantime, but now since already I don't know 5 6 years again, back in core performance sports and especially tennis, where I focus a lot on footwear, specifically working with the athletes to find the latest and greatest insights, and build the best possible footwear, of course.
Wow. So you're a young looking man there. So you must start it really early. Did you ever work anywhere else or has it just been Asics?
No, the funny thing, I've always been working for Asics, because the funny thing was at that time I was actually working as a physical educator at schools in the Netherlands. So it was kind of a jump for me as well into the, let's say, the abyss almost, right? So I didn't really know what it was all about, but it somehow struck me and got my interest, and yeah, I just wanted to try and see what it all meant. And what I really love is to work on something which helps great athletes or any kind of sportsman actually to become better, or just enjoy the sport itself, right? So and that is great with ASICS, is that some of the things we really look for every day, and with our Institute of Sport Science in Japan, where we have all our people working in a laboratory for day in day out, basically on the latest innovations, just to find ways to make every shoe each day better again, because that's how we work. We work with what we call the Kaizen principle, which is really about continuous improvement. So the next edition of each shoe needs to be better than the latest one, and that is, yeah, that's what I find really amazing, and it has my passion that yeah, as well, that grabbed me a lot. And just finding ways and look at the smallest details to get better every time again.
Nice. So you'd no technical background before you started this role.
Not, yeah, yes and no, because I don't have the technical background from, let's say, creating a shoe or somewhat, but that's what I've really learned in those 22 years on the job. So visiting factories, working with the people in Institute of Sport Science in Japan. So basically working with the best people ever, like developers, designers, everywhere, right? So, but my real background is about biomechanics, physiotherapy, physiology, all those kind of things, which has to do with how people move, and that's basically our DNA, right? We look at every yeah, sportsman, every person in each and every sport, and try to analyze every kind of movement and find ways to support that kind of movement, or help at least the player to move faster, or be more stable at court. And that's where you need to have that background of understanding how people move, right? So yeah, that's how it basically everything got together in a way.
Wow, that's really interesting. So today, what is your title? What am I going to title this podcast episode with? What do you call yourself?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. I would because I've actually my job has changed a little bit. I'm now 40% working for global, which means I really now focus on working with athletes in tennis especially, but also in handball and volleyball, for instance. So yeah, what would we call it? It's probably it's my official name is or title is basically senior manager. What is it? Product in this case, I would say, and yeah, it has so many factors, so many different angles. So it's probably difficult to give it a real name, and to be honest.
So senior product lead, would that be something?
Yeah, something like that, because it's really about also working with the athletes, not just to help them with making sure the product is perfect for them, but also finding out what could be the next step, right? So to find those insights which are interesting from a player perspective, where they run into at the moment, and which we could maybe tackle in the future. So what kind of problems do they still have at the moment? And that is where I'm trying to find as much as possible information with the best athletes, but also with tennis players who maybe play once a week or once a month even, because they look different to their products than of course professional players do.
Nice. Okay. So I'm a big fan of Asics. I've been wearing them. Really, I wore them as a young kid. I remember a coach gave them to us when we were. I'm trying to think. I was a long, long time ago, but Thomas Enquist used to wear them, and was a big fan of his. And then our coach, we sort of another way coaches sort of team up with brands to get deals on shoes, and we got Asics. And I still remember back then there was two pairs. Like I'm not sure if it was the Challenger or there was a heavier one and there was a lighter one, and I went for the lighter one. So I still go for the lighter ones. And I think the Solution Speed launched in 2012, and I still remember that was an exciting day for me. They launched, it was a green shoe. They had the first one, and it was like a light shoe. Before then, I think I was playing around with a bit of Nikes, a bit of Diodora, and they always had a light shoe. But then this big shoe came out, and since then I've been wearing that Solution Speed shoes most of the time, and I
Yeah.
still look forward to the new one. So I get asked plenty of times, what ASIC shoe should I wear? And I give my advice on it, but you have three main shoes right now, the high
Yeah.
end. So you have the Solution Speed, which is the FF3, I think is the latest one, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have the Gel Resolution 9, which is a bit of a flagship shoe for you. And then you have the Court FF3, which is the shoe you've personally worked with Novak to help design. So
Yeah.
maybe if really quickly you can tell our listeners the three main differences between those three shoes and who should wear what shoe, what type of player.
Yeah, and it's fun to hear you talking about Thomas Enquist actually, because I've been working on the gel Enquist as well at that time, so that was that's quite cool
Brilliant.
that you're mentioning the shoe. No, but talking about the three main directions we have in tennis. First of all, we how we look at tennis is that we approach tennis from what we call playing styles, right? So we have three different directions, three different playing styles in tennis. So the first one is what we call the baseline playing style, and the baseline playing style are those players who are basically most of the times at the baseline, moving from side to side, and they're quite annoying, right? Because those players, it's like hitting the wall all the time because they are so good at it, returning the ball every time. And because they're moving from side to side, the main benefit thereafter is stability in the midfoot area of the shoe. And that is what we offer in, for instance, the Resolution. The Resolution is our key model for this playing style, so for players who move side to side most of the times. Then the second playing style is what we call the
First of
all.
all, before you go in,
Yes.
before you jump in, so the Resolution is worn by, let's say, Berrettini.
Yeah, Berrettini, Borna Koric. So those are the players who are really more at the backside of the court, right? And they are able to load up really well because they want to anchor to the ground really well to be stable at the moment they hit the ball as hard as they can. So they are really the guys who wear that kind of shoe. And now, of course, yeah, with the next shoe, we're also with the Solution Speed, which is built for the all-court player. That is the one who is worn by Alex Deminar, for instance.
And okay. So back to so I'm jumping. I'm just going back. That's your resolution is the shoe I recommend for coaches because I think it's a stable shoe. It's comfortable. It's not too heavy. I think it's got lighter
Yeah.
actually over the years. So it's a good all-day shoe you can wear, and it offers support. So that's the shoe I recommend. Is that what you'd recommend for coaches too?
Yeah, that's interesting actually that you're saying this because we have, as you probably know, our Asics Tennis Academy, right, where we work with a network of a lot of coaches to get also feedback from them. And they are the one and most popular shoe for them is the Resolution because, of course, as a coach, you're not moving as much as the players. So you're standing still quite a lot. So then it's really important to have a shoe which is stable as well because that will give you the stability while standing, and it will make sure that you don't lose so much energy or get other pains or issues while you're standing that much, right? So the Resolution is definitely a shoe which is comfortable, stable, and still light enough, especially for doing your basically while you're giving your practice or while you're coaching, to do the kind of movement that is needed.
Great. So the next shoe, the Solution Speed, the one worn by me. Who else wears it? So the Minwar wears it, and you've a new female player wearing it now too.
Yeah, Belinda is of course, Bencic is of course wearing it, which we're very happy with, which is actually quite cool because we know from her that she has actually been wearing the Solution Speed earlier while she was actually injured. She got into the Solution Speed to get back in her game, and that also now when she went to us, she made her decide to get back to the Solution Speed because she still remembered that shoe very well. That helped her really well to get back from her injury. So that's of course a fantastic way to start. And she is wearing the Solution Speed, and that is because she is more of an all-court player. And for us, that means a player who, of course, starts at the baseline, but then moves more often to the net, or at least uses the court more in multiple directions. And because of that, the main benefit for a Solution Speed is lightweight and especially speed, right? So speed is the most important thing. So all technology and all the technology and features we're using for that shoe are based on creating more speed or being faster. So that's of course quite a difference from what you have heard earlier with for instance the Resolution, right?
Yeah, no, I like it because it's light. I'm not fast, but it makes me feel faster, and that's
Exactly.
half the battle. It's how you feel, and if you feel better, then you're going to play better. So that's why I really like it, and I like it for other reasons also. But for one, it's the lightness and how it makes me feel, and I don't feel like I've two heavy bricks under my feet. So that's
No,
for
it's
me.
it's it's definitely a lot more dynamic, right? Because it's especially in the forefoot, we focus on more flexibility. It gives you more energy return. It's a bit more tight around the foot, so that gives also that fast feeling, right? And that's exactly where people are after for this type of shoe and this playing style.
Yeah, in old, I like the tight feel. Some people don't like their shoe tight, and
Yeah,
I
exactly.
do. And in your earlier versions, I actually used to break the laces sometimes because over tightened it a few times. And in middle of matches, you break a lace. It turns into a nightmare because you don't carry spare laces. But anyway, it's my favorite shoe. It doesn't win the shoe of the year. The shoe that actually won the shoe of the year last year was your Court FF from Novak. So tell us why and does Novak wear the shoe and who should wear it, and then we'll get into how you actually worked with Novak to develop the range.
Now the Court of F3 is quite a special shoe, right? It's for us. It's the shoe which is made with the best player in the world, Novak Djokovic, and the reason why he's wearing it because it is the best mix between what we call then stability and speed. So in this case, the best of what we offer in the Resolution and what we offer in the Solution Speed. And it's built for those players who can actually switch between those playing styles quite easily. So Novak is of course a player which is just, it's amazing, right? If you see him playing, he can do everything. It doesn't matter. So sometimes he plays more from the baseline, sometimes he switches quickly towards the net, or he is more on top or even in front of the baseline, putting more pressure on his opponent. So that means he also needs to have a shoe who delivers all of that, right? So, and that's where we focus on with the Court FF. We have, from the start, we looked at ways to find basically the perfect mix between that stability and the let's say the flexibility or the speed and the lightness.
Yeah, I describe that shoe as, in race car terms, it's like a proper race car. It's an F1 car. It's stiff, but it's really quick. You know, if you know how to, if that's your game, if you're playing a lot, if you're really dynamic and you move quick, it rewards you a lot. But for me, I find I'm more of a casual Sunday tennis player, a casual driver, where it's too stiff. For me, it's too stiff, and I can't reach its full potential, is what I'm trying to say. So that's why the solution speed works for me. And I find I'd love to be able to wear the Novak shoe, but it's like I'm not good enough to wear it. I'm not quick enough to wear it. My feet don't work hard enough. So yeah, that's what I describe it. So how did you? Obviously, you did the Court, when you built the Court FF1, did you work with Novak to develop that shoe, or has he really come in later?
He came from the Court of F2 basically, because we first had the Court of F1, which was, if you would compare it now with the Court of F2 or Court of F3, it's quite a different shoe. So from the Court of F2, we started working with Novak and really focused on those particular things, right? So we from the scratch we basically talked with Novak. Okay, what is important? Where do we need to look at? What are the areas where we need to offer more stability, for instance, or offer more flexibility? One typical thing I think which is important, for instance, for Novak, if you look at him playing, sometimes he is almost like a spider, right? So his foot are almost like this on the floor, right? So it's like hitting the surface like this. And he's still able to stand up. And one of the things we then did is, for instance, having this rubber going up a little bit higher to make sure that when he's like that, he still has grip, right? So those kind of small details and elements are also in the shoe. But then there are also a couple of new things we have been looking at, especially going towards the Court of F3, where we worked even closer with him from concept stage. So which basically means that when we had the first concept of that shoe, we showed it to him, we explained it to him, and he gave us feedback from the start. And then from there we started moving into first samples, second samples, all those kind of things. He was, during each and every moment, he was basically in the process. And that's of course fantastic that such a big player has time to do that with you. And what I found really cool was that he was so much interested into that as well, right? It's always difficult to move a player from one shoe to the next shoe, because when they're performing well, and Novak was performing really well, then it's really difficult to move to the next one. But by working close to him and with him on this shoe and on those details, it became really, really interesting, because for him, of course, he also wants to have the best of the best, right? So he's when he can build a shoe together with us, which is even better than his previous one, then he gets triggered as well, right? So, and that is probably the let's say the area where we found each other, like us hoping to get to the next shoe and having him on board as well.
I feel when he's so invested also, there's a better chance he's actually going to really love the shoe, because he made some pivotal decisions in the shoe. How many hours in total do you think you worked with him personally to advance the shoe to come up with the final version?
That's a difficult question, because we had our online meetings. We had I visited him a couple of times as well in like Serbia. I think in total we met over 10 times, maybe 8 to 10 times. I'm not completely sure. Also taking the online meetings into account, but we. For instance, when I was in Serbia with him one time, we basically were there 1.5 days testing shoes and explaining shoes. So I met with him on one day. I had like 8 prototypes with me. I explained all the different prototypes, because they were all different. They looked the same, but they were all different. But I explained it to him the first day, and that took maybe 1 or 1.5 hours. I'm not sure, but something like that. And then the next day, actually, from the early morning, I think it was around 9:30, when he started warming up, we started basically moving from 8 shoes towards one almost final product or direction. And when I left that day, I explained to him, okay, now you have selected this one, but if there would be one thing which could be even improved, what would be the thing? And he was looking at me like, I thought we were almost there already. And I said, yeah, but we're going for the next prototype. So if there's a chance to be even better, then we will try. And then he explained a bit on the, let's say, for instance, the forefoot flexibility on the outside of the shoe. Because he likes his shoes to be quite flexible and yeah, rotate in the good direction, right? And so we did. So we came back in Monte Carlo. I think it was in April, a year ago, like April 2022. And we got back with 3 samples again. And what is really great about Novak, if I go to him or if we send him shoes, the next day or even the same day, he's wearing the shoe. Even if it's in front of a major tournament. We have pictures of him wearing the prototype at Australian Open when he's practicing, which is crazy, right? Because he's playing such an important tournament. But yeah, he's also so eager to find the best shoe probably as well. So we did the same in Monte Carlo. I arrived with basically a suitcase of samples again. And the first thing he did is he put them on, and so he stopped his practice, put them on, and went practicing again, which is fantastic. And yeah, he gave us feedback, and then I left, and even resulting him calling me or basically sending me video messages like a month later, like maybe you think about this or think about that, which is that's of course the perfect situation you want to have, right? So yeah, it's a little bit difficult for me to count the hours, but in total, it's a lot. It's a lot of time which went into especially testing the product, right? So and then sending us messages or through his management or himself sending us video messages. Yeah, as you have seen in Marbella when we did the presentation as well, right? You've seen the video message as well. So it's it's amazing. It's really cool.
So yeah, he sounds like he's a champion and he's always looking for marginal gain. So if he can get a 1% gain or even less from a shoe, he's going to be better. And what's the one characteristic you noticed most from that you were impressed by?
So from Novak, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's the professionalism. I think it's being so looking at probably every angle. If it's about food, if it's about sleep, it's about your practice routine, it's about your footwear, it's about your racket. It's. I think if you're at such a level, then the only difference which can still make a difference is probably those details, right? So because you're already at such a high level, I guess that is something I've learned from him as well, is just keep looking at new ways, new angles, new innovation, and see how we can improve again, because you can always improve. There's always a way to get better, and that's something he is looking at day in, day out, as far as I can judge from the meetings we have had.
Wow. And when Novak says, let's make the toe a bit less, less stiffer, let's do this, add some grip. You get those changes, you communicate with the team in Japan. How long? I know everything is a bit different depending on what needs to be changed or updated. But how quick can they turn around? Do they do 3D printing? How does that side of thing works?
Yeah, we do all of that, but of course we try to have immediate prototypes which can then be tested again. And by 3D printing, you can show it, but not always test it, right? So that's always the thing, because especially with tennis shoes, because of the lateral movement, it's difficult to do something with 3D printing quickly. So what we do, and we have in our Institute of Sport Science, we have our customization team, and this team is basically in the institute has their own factory, which is a very small factory just for our athletes. where they can do basically anything. So they can change the let's say the rubber the composition, or they can change the design of the outsole. But of course, it depends a little bit on how big the change is, right? So if you want to change the whole design of an outsole, it means a different mold, and a different mold takes a lot of time, right? So, but there are now new ways that they can do that quicker as well. So for some of the things, we can react within probably, I don't know, a week or something, right? So it all depends if it goes back and forth to Japan, for instance. That of course takes longer. Sometimes I can be involved, so I can sometimes help out as well at the spot, sometimes even. So there are some things we can do really quick, and others which take a little bit longer, and that all depends on if you need, for instance, molds to change a thing, right? So if you need to really change the whole construction of the shoe. So for instance, if you look at an outsole like this, and you need to change the design of it, that is of course something that takes a little bit longer. But if it's about the density sometimes of a sock liner, or the density of a midsole, sometimes it can be quite fast. It's difficult to have a number of it for it, but we can react quick because we have this customization team.
And let's say your shoe go from size 3 to 14. Is there different mold for each sole?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes we can use a mold for 2 sizes, so for like 3 and then 3.5. But also that depends on the design, on the type of shoe, and so on.
It's expensive putting together a shoe. It's not.
It is really expensive. Yeah, sometimes we have sometimes some discussions like, then people ask us, you can change this, you can change that, but then I explain like, but that means a different mold, so that means a lot of money and price and cost. So
when you're developing a shoe, let's say with Novak, you probably just worked off his size. In general, when you're developing a shoe, is there a specific shoe size you work off? Are all prototypes in size 11 US, let's say, or it just depends?
Yeah, normally we have size 9 for men's and size 7 for women's.
Okay, so that means if you're working for Asics and you're one of those sizes, you get all the prototype. You get to test them. If you're not,
So, but I have to say more and more. So honestly, in the old days we had a lot of samples, but nowadays with digital samples, we have the chance to reduce a lot of that. Because we also have our targets in sustainability, for instance. So we make sure that we reduce the amount of samples as much as possible. And for instance, when we make our first samples in the whole process, we try to make them in sizes of one of our athletes. So for instance, for Novak, we take his size, or for Borna, because we want to test, right? So we want to test as early as possible. And then when we move to second sample or third sample, we often go back to the sample size, because that is, let's say, the most common ones also when we talk to retailers, or we talk to other consumers and so on.
What foot size is Novak?
He is now 10.5, yeah.
US or UK?
That is US. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so small enough. Like it's not average, let's say. But so. When do you draw the line? When is stop, as in Novak, we can't change that anymore, this is the shoe? How do you draw the line?
That is how I draw. Basically, that has to, as different moments. Many times we have a certain goal, of course, to launch a certain shoe as well. But in the end, so basically it means, okay, for instance, spring summer 2022, we wanted to have, or the 23, we wanted to have the new Court FF3, which means it needs to be in the stores from, let's say, January 1st. But that then means that Novak needs to practice with the shoe in the final stage, basically from November, right? Because that's the moment when they start changing the shoe. But of course, already a lot earlier. So from our first meeting on the Court FF3 was already around 2020. So which was really early, right? But then we had COVID as well, because so that extended a few things. But yeah, we basically decide as soon as we are clear, like, okay, the shoe is ready with Novak as well. Then we say, okay, now it's ready. And of course, we can always keep changing. But at some point, we also say, okay, now it's like 99% ready. Okay, now we can set the launch date. We make sure that it's ready for that time. And basically for us, it means working backwards, right? So we know spring, summer, it needs to launch. That is 1st of January. That means it needs to be ready then. That means we need to have our final meeting with Novak then, and so on and so on. So my last meeting with Novak was in November 2022 at the ATP Masters, checking basically the final shoe. Yeah.
You're like, no more changes, no more changes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that was quite a like exciting. Let's call it an exciting moment. But he was happy, so that was good. That was good.
And are you working? Have you done early works on the, let's say, the fourth version of this shoe? Is it already?
We are actually now moving into that direction. So the Court FF3 is now up for, I think it's not now yet, but soon we will start talking about the shoe as well again. So on the first, let's say, concept and how to move forward, yes.
That's crazy. You put all this work, get the shoe over the line, you get a little break, and you're back on it again. But this year, so in December for early this year, you launched the Resolution 9, you launched the Court FF3, and my shoe, the Solution Speed FF, is it 2? The latest one is 3 or 2? The one that's out now.
3, I think.
3,
now you get me. Now you get me.
I get confused. All these numbers. But when will I expect to see the new version of that shoe hit the shops?
So that is now scheduled for the basically next year. So it's so now it's the Resolution, right? And then the next summer we're gonna aim for the Solution Speed. So we're quite ahead already. It's basically done. So we're doing the last type of testing as well, moving into the final product. So I've been testing with Alex, for instance, a couple of times now, and we're basically heading now for the final product, and then testing hopefully again with Alex during that time. But basically, so end of this year, November, that's the moment when those athletes who move to the next Solution Speed get the final product. So they have the month of November to get used to it, or to basically practice with it, so that they're ready from 1st of January to use it for Australian Open, for instance.
Nice. So Lindsay said she'd send me a prototype earlier, but now I know why she didn't, or she couldn't, because they don't have my size. So it's quite useless to me without the size. But so yes, that's really interesting. Let's just talk about it. I have a few other questions that some people asked me. First of all, how do you pick the colors? I know there's a Solution Speed out now. They're high gloss pink, and from feedback, some people really love it, and some people like, I'd never wear them. Who makes the decision with colors?
So the decision is we make basically as a team, of course, but we have our what we call our trend agencies where we work with, who predict colors as well. It's sometimes funny because sometimes you can see some kind of colors, like the pink, for instance, which has been launched in haute couture or in fashion shows already 2 years before, right? And then slowly it moves to sport. It's quite interesting how that develops. But what we always do is we have our what we call our let's say seasonal colors. So, and one of those seasonal colors is, especially with those key styles, are very striking. So we have one color which is really out there, right? Like the pink one in this case for the Resolution. And then we have a second color which is a little bit more, let's call it conservative, or a little bit less crazy for those who didn't like the pink one. And then we have many times what we call a core color, and a core color is basically a white version or a black version. So those colors who work for most of the people as well, right? So you have basically, you can choose between 3 colors, and most of the times one of them will work for you. But those seasonal colors are this season very trendy or popular, and then the year after you will see new seasonal colors, right? Or the season after. So in autumn, winter, we will have new colors for the solution speed, which can be quite different as well. So that's what's happening then as well.
Nice. And let's talk quickly about court soles. How important is it that players wear the right soles on the right surface? So you have a hard court sole, you have a clay court sole. I know you do grass court sole, but you can't buy them, which is frustrating for a lot of people. But how important is that people wear the right sole on the right surface?
Yeah, that's it's if you wear the wrong sole, it basically it could mean you're wearing the wrong shoe in general, right? So what it means is that the whole benefit you're after from a shoe could disappear or is hardly there, because the outsole creates the traction, the grip, which is one of the main features of each and every shoe in tennis. Because you can imagine when you're moving around in tennis, the body weight is going to the left side, but you actually need to go to the other side, right? You need to switch quite quickly. And all of that can only happen if you have the right grip coming from the shoe. So if you would slip, or if there's not enough grip coming from the shoe, then it means that you cannot move properly and you will be too late to get the ball, or you will be even worse. You could end up getting an injury or anything like that, right? So wearing a clay court shoe is, for instance, very important, because it allows the clay to go in the outsole, but when you move around, it actually drops out of the outsole again. If you would wear a hard court outsole, for instance, on clay, what happens is that the clay will go inside the outsole and it stays there. So it basically collects all the clay, so you get a smooth surface underneath your shoe, which in the end means you will start slipping, and you will just have a lot of problems keeping your grip and hitting the ball in the right way, keeping your balance, all those kind of things. And it's also the other way around. You could play with a hard or a clay court outsole on hard court. You even would have grip in the beginning, but what will happen is that the outsole will wear out really quickly, because it's a bit softer, and it has a different shape, right? So it has little of a less control with the ground, so there's less contact with the ground, and because of that, it will start wearing out quicker. And because of that, it will become more slippery as well. So again, you lose balance. It will be more difficult to reach the ball, to be quick, to move left and right, and hit the ball in the right way.
And you don't have the pivot points on the hard court. Have the little pivot where you can turn on certain parts of your foot, isn't it?
Exactly. And even if you look at clay court shoes, the design are for basically all of them are the same, right? You have this waffle pattern in the outsole along the whole outsole. If you look at a very good outsole for hardcourt, you will see that the design is different in all kind of angles. And that is because on the medial side, for instance, you need to have more control while turning. On the outside, you need to have more control when you're moving back and forth. So there are different designs in the outsole to make sure you get the right kind of grip and traction while you're playing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Clay court shoes are actually quite nice. They're always that little bit more comfortable, and you sit a little bit higher as well. There's something about them, but you're right. If you wear them on hard court, they're not going to last long at all.
No.
Next question, juniors. We have a lot of parent listeners here, a lot of younger listeners. What tips do you have for them to help them pick the right shoe for their kid? Is it just pick a color they like, or what's important?
No, I think it first of all, find the right size is really important, right? So to make sure that the foot is comfortable inside, because also with kids, when sliding or when moving side to side, the toes will hit basically the bumper of the shoe, and that could give some problems, of course. Make sure that the foot is comfortable inside. So nowadays you sometimes see shoes where they have this midsole, which is made out of the same material as the outsole, which means that the shoe becomes very stiff. So the foot needs to be able to move let's say in a very smooth and comfortable way. So the flexibility, for instance, in the forefoot is very, very important, because the toes need to be able to move around in the right way, because the foot of course of kids are growing quite fast, so they need to have enough space, enough room to move around easily, but also the shoe should be able to flex in a very easy way, because if it's too stiff, the foot cannot develop well and you cannot move around well, so you will not have enough traction. So that is something which is very important for kids footwear. And then lastly is probably the stability in the midfoot area, where they need to have enough support, so not too much support but enough support to basically have the foot move in the right way and efficient way.
And they're all the three main shoes. Are they available in kid sizes?
No, we have the Game GS, we have the Resolution GS, which are our kid shoes at the moment, and those are the ones which are working really well, because with kids you're not talking about playing styles yet so much, right? They still need to develop that playing style. It's more about having a comfortable, let's say, stable shoe for them. So the Resolution Kids is really strong for them. That's for us our best kids shoe at the moment, offering the right kind of balance in stability and comfort in this case, because that's very important for kids, that the comfort of the shoe is really strong.
Nice. And my final question, Rene, is a question that I've been actually meaning to ask a trainer, strength and conditioning coach. Every time I post a video of either a junior or a top tennis player sliding on a hard court, people are like, their knees. When you see Novak or Diminuar sliding on both sides on a hard court, one, how do they do it from your technical side? And two, how does it make you feel?
For me it's interesting, because it means there's a new need, right? So there's a new need for probably a new direction in footwear, or new technologies which we should use to enable them to slide in that way, as comfortable and in the best way possible. Excuse me. Because that is something what is just happening nowadays, right? It's we already know for quite some time now that especially the younger guys, and also now more younger female players, sliding in hardcourt is like normal. It's not even so. In a couple of years ago, it was maybe one or two who sometimes did it, and maybe sometimes just because it happened and not really on purpose. But nowadays they're so strong in their legs that they can do it basically whenever they want, and they do it often. I talked to Borna, for instance, on Friday, and he was also explaining and already thinking ahead for the US Open or hardcourt season coming later this year, talking about the Resolution, like, did you think about this, did you think about that, because I'm sliding a lot and there will be something changing inside the shoe. And of course that's true, right? The strength or the power or the energy which goes through the shoe is changing because of that, and that makes it interesting for us. In the beginning we were also like, I hope everything goes well because of that sliding. But now it becomes interesting to develop that shoe which works really well, offering the right kind of traction but still be able to slide, right? So that's it's an interesting angle for us, for sure.
It's crazy. It's every time I see a video, I'm like, how do they do it? The amount of force and they need is crazy. But yeah, Rene, thank you very much for jumping on.
You're
I'm
welcome.
excited. Actually, I will be. So this is when this airs out the next day. I'll be joining some of the Asics guys at your house in Paris. So I'm looking forward to interviewing some of your athletes then, which we will have in future episodes of the podcast. And yeah, thanks very much. Great speaking to you again. Hope to see you in the future.
You're very welcome. It's always fun to talk about these kind of things. And if there's any other questions, I hope to hear as much as you want.